Hi everyone, welcome back. I'm really excited to share these videos with you. This is some content that I enjoy sharing with people that I work with. And I don't get to do this, honestly, in a therapy setting where I'm mostly spending time investing in what people are saying and trying to understand where they're at and listening. The large part of therapy is for a therapist is doing more listening than talking. So I love the platform that allows therapists and any educator to share some things that they find to be helpful. And frankly, a lot of what I share with you here are the things that people come and that they get from me in part in a therapy session, and I hope that these things are helpful to you. I'm hearing a lot about the lack of respect and the lack of boundaries, and specifically in relationships. And so I thought I would combine those and talk to you today about 3 boundaries of a respectful relationship. But before I do that, I want to share some principles because respect has some very old truths. We call them principles. It's important that you remember that when it comes to principles, they're not promises. They're not guarantees. In order for principles to apply, people have to actually use them. They have to believe them. And so let me share with you some basic principles of respect, and then we'll add that piece to how to apply those in terms of setting boundaries that I believe these are the 3 most important boundaries in a relationship that generates respect. So just real quickly, some of these principles. Principle number 1, you are not likely to be respected by someone who does not respect themselves. If you notice someone being disrespectful towards you, it's probably a safe assumption that they don't respect other people and probably that they don't even respect themselves. There's probably areas of their lives, like their appearance, their finances, their schedule, the way they keep their room, their vehicles. These areas are not areas that they respect. They don't respect close family members. And it's probably a safe assumption when someone's disrespectful towards you that there's a long list of others that they're not respectful, and they're probably at the top. My personal belief is that the angrier the person and the more disrespectful, the longer the list. And so I think that's an important principle to consider. The second one I want to share with you is that you cannot make someone respect you. There's an important distinction that has to be made here when it comes to respect. There is a difference between respect and compliance. Don't confuse the two. Compliance often exists in a power differential. A police officer, a landlord, a boss, even a coworker with some rank. It could be a relationship where somebody's paying all the bills and you're not. It could be anything where someone has an edge on somebody else. Even a parental relationship can be, and there is, a huge power differential. So don't confuse respect with compliance, because often you have to consider that respect comes from the heart. It requires a caring relationship to exist. So you can't make somebody respect you. The third principle is that a relationship is not the place to deal with respect issues. The heart is. What heart issues? Like resentment, old wounds, unforgiveness, destructive beliefs. This is where respect issues start. I believe that a relationship is where respect issues are revealed, not healed. And so keeping that in mind is very important if you're in a relationship where you feel like that's the place that you need to start. It's not. It has to start with the heart. The fourth principle, real quickly here, is you often have to turn an entire culture around before people feel safe turning around. And so a culture is where everyone's in sync. Doesn't matter, good, bad, ugly, toxic, healthy, wherever people are in agreement or in sync, that's what a culture is. Everybody complies, everybody goes along with. Even rule followers will cooperate with a toxic culture before they buck the system. You need to know that. There's a really good miniseries that came out in 2022 called A Thief, His Wife, and a Canoe. If you haven't seen it, it's a 4-part series. I thought it was really well done. It's based on a true story where a man committed fraud, and he slowly drew his non-compliant wife in with him, and to the extent where now she was as prosecutable as he was because she had to keep going along with the story and the lies. And so that's often what happens. Even rule followers will comply with a system of toxicity before they'll start bucking the system and stand out like a sore thumb. So those are 4 principles when it comes to respect that I think it's important for us all to consider. Now let's just take a look at 3 boundaries that I believe are essential in a healthy relationship. The first one is the boundary of self-respect. Listen, boundaries are not about telling others where their lines are, but where your lines are. It's not about what other people are doing right or wrong. It's about what you have decided is right or wrong for you. It's a line of intentions, core values, beliefs, preferences, even comfort zones. And so inasmuch as no one has the right to tell you where your lines are, you don't have the right to tell anyone where their lines are. This is the boundary of self-respect. Now, let me make sure there's a distinction here, because when it comes to personal bubbles, people usually understand that's a big deal. We talk about our personal bubble as a boundary. We teach our kids these concepts. And I think for the most part, people are pretty good about protecting their own personal bubbles, but we're not very good, in my opinion, about protecting our own psychological bubbles. I mean, this is usually where people are exposed. They're very unprotected. Now, I'm going to share some mottos with you that I hear people say. I think they're good mottos, but the problem is when I hear somebody say them, it's often because they're not honoring them, and they think that just saying them is going to convince people that that's what they believe. First motto, and I've heard this a lot: your procrastination is not my emergency. That's a good belief. Now, that's hard to pull off in the workplace when you're getting a paycheck, maybe to deal with other people's procrastination. It's just true. This is more doable at home, but it's harder in a different way because at home, we love everybody usually in the house, and we want to be there to help and support. But honoring this parameter is a very difficult thing to do. And again, if you have to say it, don't say it cynically, and don't say it as a means of helping other people realize that you have boundaries here. If you have to say it, it probably isn't true, but it is a good belief. Another motto, I think there's a help one here. Your lack of self-care is not my issue. Now, it might be my concern. And often if I don't, in a relationship, if I don't see you taking care of yourself, then your lack of self-care could eventually become my problem, to the extent where now my self-care is at stake. But the truth be told, my self-care is my issue, your self-care is your issue. And I have care for your self-care, but I have almost no power. I can help you, encourage you, support you, provide, fund, go along with, but I can't make you take care of yourself. And no one can do that for you either. So it's a good motto, but it's something you have to believe, not just say. Your lack of self-care is not my issue. Here's another one. Your lack of emotional regulation is a problem. Now, this is one of these areas where I see, especially in marriages, where somebody usually has to tolerate somebody's eccentric, over the line, angry, intense, belligerent, hostile, emotional carelessness or destruction. And this is one of the beliefs that I think that you have to just, you don't just say it, you have to believe it. Your lack of emotional regulation is in fact a problem. Here's the issue. It will be uncomfortable for you until you actually believe it. If you say it, but you don't really believe it, potentially what you're doing is you're creating a bigger monster for yourself. All right? Now, those are some interesting mottos that you can consider when it comes to the boundary of self-respect, because to me that's the first one that any of us has to pay attention to. Otherwise, the other ones really don't matter. Here's another one. The boundary of deal breakers. Every relationship has these three buckets: attractions, tolerations, and deal breakers. And they really exist from the very beginning of a relationship. The attraction is the reason that we went out on a second date. It's the reason that we kept dating. It's the reason that we became steady, got engaged, got married, had kids. I mean, attractions is usually the beginning of a relationship. But there are tolerations. There are things that I don't prefer, I'm not crazy about. But I can tolerate it. It's not a big deal for me. But then there are the deal breakers. These are the lines that I don't want to see crossed. And what I would say to you here is be very careful what you call a deal breaker, because your credibility is on the line. If it's in fact a deal breaker, then there's something that you can't say. I don't believe any relationship should exist where someone thinks you will never leave me. Don't ever say that, because essentially when you say I will never leave you, essentially what you're saying is there's no level of suffering, toxicity, or abuse that would compel me to protect myself or my children. And I don't truly believe that's where people are. You have to watch out for anything you call a deal breaker. It's like the mom that tells her son to clean his room before he goes out and play, and she looks out the window 15 minutes later, and there he is. He's out there playing with his friends. She has a moment of opportunity. She can either hold that line or she can let it go. Well, you all know what happens if you let it go. That becomes the new baseline. That becomes the new standard. And so we've got to be very careful what we call a deal breaker, and then make sure that we are honoring what we call deal breakers. Here's a third boundary that I believe is very important. It's the boundary of a respectful culture. Remember what I said? You have to turn a culture around before you can turn people around. Well, here are some things that can be done, I believe, to begin to build a respectful culture, and it's not an easy task. But the first thing you can do is you can be willing to operate alone for a while. That doesn't mean that you operate alone forever, to the extent where, your self-care is taking a hit, your mental health is taking a hit. I'm not suggesting that you operate in a vacuum where everyone else is consuming and you're the one producing. I'm just saying that if you want to build a respectful culture, you have to be willing to operate alone for a little while. The second thing you have to be willing to do is you have to make small changes that are good for everyone, not just for you. So keep it simple, keep it doable, keep it measurable, help people understand what that looks like, model it first, and then educate second. If you educate first and then don't model, then you won't be heard. So model it, then educate it. Model it, then educate it. Eventually what will happen is that people will begin to understand it. And that brings us to the third thing you do. Reward when people get it. And a reward can just be a simple calling it out. Hey, you've been doing X, Y, and Z lately, and it's been very helpful, and it's something that I just want you to know that it really is contributing to a respectful culture right here. Like, call it out, call it by name, let people see it. Eventually, one by one, people will begin to get on board. Not always, again, principles. But when you're living in an environment where you have people of character, people of values, and you're willing to take the first step, usually, almost always, people will begin to follow suit, and then you will begin to turn a culture around. So reward people when they begin to get it. The deal is, respect is contagious, and so is compliance. What kind of relationship do you want? I'm happy to share these things with you. If you found some helpfulness here, share them with other people. Subscribe if you haven't done that. Let others that you may care about know about this information. This is just something we do here to try to provide a service for our community and beyond. So I hope you've enjoyed this content, and let us know if you have any topics or issues that you'd like to address, and we'll see if we can find a way to work that in there. Thank you, and I'll see you next time.